latest on COVID-19 cases at Mandarin Orchard, 8 more hotel staff have come back positive for likely past infections.
Speaking to the Straits Times, NTUC Chief Ling Li Min gives a frank assessment of the employment outlook for 2021.
To be absolutely honest, many people ask me, how can we help? How can we do this and do that for you? Well, whether you're an employer or a worker, first step is that you must help yourself.
Launching next year, 17,000 BTO flat units are up for grabs in non-mature and mature estates.
You're watching The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Olivia Quay.
I'm Harianto Dimana. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Well, some COVID-19 numbers first. 10 new COVID-19 cases confirmed today, including one in the community. It's Singapore's first community case reported since December the 5th. There were also 9 imported cases who had been placed on stay-home notices on arrival in Singapore.
In the latest update by the Health Ministry today on the Mandarin Orchard COVID-19 cases, the serological tests of 8 more staff have come back positive, indicating likely past infections. Now this in addition to the 3 announced yesterday. Investigations of these 11 cases are in progress.
MOH said that it has completed, quote, special testing operations on all individuals serving SHN as well as staff of the hotel. Of all those who served SHN, 3 tested positive yesterday. The ministry said it's likely these 3 are imported cases and not linked to 13 others being investigated.
Now let's recap the sequence of events. Last Saturday, December the 19th, MOH said it was investigating 13 people. They've been classified as imported cases when they were confirmed to have COVID-19 last month and had served their SHN at Mandarin Orchard Hotel. The 13 cases had served their SHN between October 22nd and November 11th and were confirmed to have COVID-19 between November 2nd and 11th.
It was found that they had been infected by coronavirus strains that have, quote, high genetic similarity, this implying that the infections may have come from the same source, and despite the fact that they had flown in from 10 different countries like the US, South Korea, Britain, the Philippines and Bahrain. MOH said they might have been infected after arriving here.
People outside these 13 cases also serving SHN at the hotel were swabbed, and that was when 3 of them were detected to be positive for the virus. They were immediately taken to hospital via ambulance.
Well, separately, the hotel stopped accepting new guests since Saturday and all existing guests checked out by 9 p.m. last night. Those serving SHN at the hotel were transported via dedicated vehicles to alternative dedicated facilities. The hotel is closed for deep cleaning and disinfecting and will remain closed as investigations are ongoing.
Earlier this afternoon, before MOH's latest update, we spoke to infectious diseases physician from the Rophi Clinic, Dr. Ling Li Min.
So other experts have pointed to human factors and hotel-based transmission as possible reasons how this could have happened. What's your take on how the guests and staff got infected?
So for the 13 SHN guests who were tested positive over the period of 22nd of November to 22nd of October to 11th November, they, as you know, based on whole genomic sequencing and phylogenetic analysis, showed that they had fairly highly of similar genetic strains. Certainly, local transmission within Singapore would have to be excluded, and that's not just purely looking at the hotel. We need to look at all the touch points, including the time that they disembarked from the airplanes, through the airport, onto the transport, and into the hotel, and including the hotel itself. As for the 3 staff who was serology positive but swab negative, they were likely to have gotten infected anywhere, I guess, between at least in the past 1 to 3 weeks. As to whether or not they form part of the cluster of the 13 SHN cases, it is very hard to tell because they are only serology positive. They could have gotten infected way before the 13 SHNs arrived in Singapore. And then finally, the 3 guests who recently tested positive, they are likely to be imported cases.
the 13 cases served their SHN from end October to mid-November, yet this was just reported over the past weekend. It's been over a month. Why is there a delay between these 13 people contracting the virus and finding a link among them?
I think it's really because it requires a lot of detailed investigative work or detective work. And a lot of it really depends on the platform that's been used to do this detective work. And I believe they are using the WGS whole genomic sequencing platform as well as phylogenetic analysis. So I guess, as in the press releases, they have already said that first, the process that's required is that they need it to culture the virus. And we all know that to culture viruses, it does take up to 4 weeks. And then after that, that's when they start working on the genomic sequencing. Therefore, I think if you think about it, it is not surprising that from the time that the last of the positive 13 cases was tested, and that's 11th of November, to the time that the announcement was made, we are looking at about this 4 to 5 week time frame.
I see. Well, Dr. Ling, is there a risk of a cluster forming from this incident, and will it spark another wave of infections in the community?
Well, I think if a cluster was going to happen, we would have already seen it. It's been 5 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks, since the last of that 13 tested positive. That was on the 11th of November. So I think if that cluster was going to happen, we should have already seen it, and we haven't. So I don't think that there has been a new cluster within Singapore that has arisen from those 13 SHNs.
Right. Now, following this incident, we know all those serving SHN were tested, staff as well. But other guests, like people on staycations, were told to check out and monitor their health. Should these guests, you reckon, still get tested on their own?
Well, I think that most hotels who are allowed to have both SHNs and people who are on staycations would probably would have to go through a very, very rigorous process of certifying and ensuring that all their protocols and guidelines are in place and for compliance, right? So I think that would therefore mean that the probability of staycation guests mixing with SHN people are almost remote, in fact, zilch. But I think if a staycation guest was worried about themselves having the remote possibility of being infected, and for their ease of mind, if they really feel like to make themselves feel better, they would prefer to have a COVID swab. I think they can do it out of their own, for their own reassurance. But really, I think the chances of them being in contact with any of those SHN guests would have been really remote. Okay, and I think that just monitoring their own health, taking temperature, would be sufficient.
Doc, as a follow-up, how about these regular guests being in contact with the staff working at Mandarin Orchard, who may be in contact with the 3 cases of staff being reported to have testing positive for COVID-19?
Yeah, but I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is that we don't really know which staycation guests came into contact with which staff that was tested positive. But remember, the 3 staff, we don't even know when they got infected. Was it in the past 5 weeks, or was it in the past 2 months, or was it 3 months ago? Serology positivity can remain positive up to anywhere between 3 to 6 months. So I can only say that what we can do is that we can only work and advise based on what's definite. And what's definite is that SHN guests and staycation guests, usually based on the hotel protocols, would not be intermingling. I think the staff also, the staff who are taking care of SHNs versus the staff taking care of regular staycation guests, I am sure the hotels would have made provisions not to have risk of intermingling or transmission. So if we trust that we have all the protocols in place, and if people adhere to them and there aren't any breaches, then really I think the staycation guests should be safe.
Right. Dr. Ling, on a separate topic, England is reporting a highly contagious new variant of the coronavirus. What does that mean for us in Singapore? Do we need to be worried?
Well, I think this is a really interesting area and certainly a space that we must continue to observe and watch. It remains to be seen, and there's certainly no clear-cut evidence what this new strain would mean for all of us. Is it going to be more deadly? Is it going to be more contagious? And what about the impact on the vaccine? Certainly areas that we worry about, but up till now, really, there isn't sufficient data to suggest what its true impact will be. And so we really do have to watch this space. In the meantime, we have to continue doing what we are already good at, that is safe distancing measures, hand hygiene, masking, and for those who want to go for the vaccine, to go for the vaccine.
Well, thank you so much for setting aside time to speak with us, Dr. Ling. We've been speaking to Dr. Ling Li Min, an infectious diseases physician from the Rophi Clinic.
Visit straitstimes.com to follow the developing story on the cases at Mandarin Orchard Hotel. Although 2021 looks to be a better year with COVID-19 vaccines on the way, NTUC Chief Ng Chee Meng said next year could be just as bad for employers and workers if they don't adapt to the times.
In the latest of a series of webinars, the Straits Times tackles a subject strongly felt by most of us, job losses and opportunities for 2021. Now here's a snippet.
Because it's a difficult year, workers have lost their jobs, companies have folded. So what do you say to the view that if they survive this year, the chances of surviving beyond this year is actually pretty good, be it a worker or a company? Right. What would you say to this view?
Well, I wouldn't say that you will be good unless you really adopt a different mindset. You must adapt to the different challenges and you must act upon those convictions to move. Because to be absolutely honest, many people ask me, how can we help? How can we do this and do that for you? Well, whether you're an employer or a worker, first step is that you must help yourself. Accept that the world has changed. Adopt to new situations and take action. If you're an employer, well, partner NTUC or SNAF together, anyway, we are working together very closely. How can you rethink about your business model? What are the government grants that can be utilized? And for a worker, how can you take personal responsibility regardless of how the circumstances may be? You are busy with this, with all the different responsibilities. How can you carve out a time? Let NTUC partner you into some levels of upskilling, pivot if the industry is challenged into other industries, or if you're in the specific industry, you think that it has growth, deepen your skills there so that you can future-proof yourself. Okay. So in the ecosystem that Robert and I have been working on, we call it Queen Bee concept. How can we actually look beyond individuals, look beyond just a company, but into clustering capabilities so that we don't use yesterday's business models for tomorrow. Right. It is not just about digitalization. It's like what we Chinese, or in Singapore, we all know, chopsticks. You know, you can break a single chopstick, but we band together is strength. And it's not just strength that we're looking for, but opportunities to hunt in the pack. How can we rethink the business model so that we grow the Singapore economy, help our businesses thrive, not just survive and sustain. And importantly then, when the Singapore economy is good, employers are making money, I can do my job as Secretary General to provide better wages, better welfare, and importantly for Singaporeans, better work prospects for the future. Critical.
What would you say to this view that as a company, if you can survive this year, you've survived this year, you're able to survive beyond this year?
Yeah. You see, we work very closely, right? Brother Chimmy and I think we actually look at the entire situation in a holistic way. We don't look at good for labor and then or good for employees. We good for everybody. I think it's very important. So one of the key things for this transformation is that the workers' mindset must remain open, right? They must be flexible, adaptable, right? So that we can teach them new skills, we can upskill them, we can reskill them, so that they can be very relevant, right, for the future. I think that's one important stage. But at the same time, driving the employers group, I think we are important to see how businesses must transform. So we mentioned about digitalization. So today, I think the good news is that actually now everybody realizes it's very important. Everybody wish they have done it earlier. So when we are pushing like the ITM, I think the 23 ITM maps that we are pushing, at that part transformation actually has been moving, but not as quickly as what it should have. But this actually have accelerated, which is a good sign. That means we're transforming businesses quickly, right, through digitalization. Secondly, I think workplace transformation is one other thing. So a lot of the companies now, we are encouraging them, we are coaching them, we are looking at how to help them transform workplaces that are age-friendly, so the older workers remain relevant, right, that are able also to absorb people that are prepared to be retrained, right, into that organization. So that is actually job provision that we are actually creating, helping companies to be able to do that.
In the local headlines, the police will continue to step up patrols during the festive season to deter public scrutiny of security threats and crime. The Home Affairs Ministry said the police have intensified their patrols since September following terror incidents in Europe. A ministry spokesman stressed that the risk of copycat attacks in Singapore is high, with the country highly susceptible to influence by external developments. The Immigration and Checkpoints Authority has also stepped up security checks and screening at all checkpoints and increased the frequency of patrols.
Meanwhile, Singapore could possibly play a role in distributing coronavirus vaccines. Trade and Industry Minister Chan Chun Sing said today that Singapore is in discussion with major suppliers of Covid-19 vaccines. Mr. Chan added that there is a possibility for Singapore to help in fill and finish manufacturing, which refers to the packing part of the production. This would in turn help in distributing the vaccines to the region.
About 17,000 BTOs will be launched next year in line with the supply of new flats this year. The new flats will be offered in mature estates like Geylang, Kallang Wampo, Bidadari Estate in Toa Payoh and Ulu Pandan Estate in Queenstown. New flats in non-mature estates like Bukit Batok, Tengah and Woodlands will also be up for sale.
Now, the average Singapore household throws away 5 kilograms of food waste every year. Now, it doesn't seem like much, but taken all together, that's 26,000 tons and $342 million ending up in the landfill.
So what can each of us do to reduce how much we're throwing out? We'll take a cue from 1FM 91.3 DJ Angelique Teo, who also turns her food waste into compost. In partnership with DBS Bank, the Sunday Times goes inside Angelique's home in the 5th episode of this 6-part series on food waste.
And if I do have any extra food or food that has gone bad, I do composting. So I've got my fruit and vegetable scraps, which are ready for composting. I put it in my airtight stasher bag. This is the compost accelerator, and this is the urban composter, which has been designed specifically for apartments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my scraps smaller so that they compost quicker. Now the reason it's good to compost your food is if you just throw your food waste into your garbage bin and then it goes into the landfill, it's not going to break down because the food scraps get piled into the landfill and they don't have the oxygen to break down. So what happens is the food scraps emit methane, which is a greenhouse gas. So this is a compost accelerator, and basically it's made from fermented fruit extract in a recycled plastic bottle. So once I've put my food scraps in each time, I spray about 3 to 5 sprays, close it, and let the spray and the food do its work. So every time I have food scraps, I just keep adding and adding and adding and spraying. And after about a week and a half, I get compost juice coming out of this tap. So the juice diluted can be used to spray my plants with water, or concentrated can be used to unclog my sink.
Now you can read more at the Live More Waste Less series on the Straits Times website. The first 4 parts of the series are in this link as well.
A quick check on the global headlines. A new fast-spreading variant of the coronavirus in England has led to more travel bans, with countries including Ireland, France, Italy, Hong Kong and Canada closing their borders to travellers from the UK. This a day after Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson ordered a wholesale lockdown on London and surrounding areas because of the new variant. Mutated strains of the coronavirus were also detected in Denmark and South Africa.
More restrictions in Bangkok as well. Thailand's capital announced a raft of Covid-19 measures following an outbreak in the neighbouring seaside province of Samut Sakhon. Schools in 3 districts in the province's boundary area will be closed for 14 days. Workers who commute to Samut Sakhon must stay at home, and migrant workers entering Bangkok will be screened. Other measures to prevent an outbreak in Bangkok, including the banning of dancing in entertainment venues, as well as the wearing of masks in markets, public parks and temples.
The Malaysian High Court has convicted UMNO's Treasurer General of corruption. Tunku Adnan Tunku Mansor was found guilty for accepting 2 million ringgit from a local businessman in 2016 when he was the Federal Territories Minister. The High Court judge said that the prosecution has proved its case beyond reasonable doubt and dismissed Tunku Adnan's claims of political persecution.
Now, if you don't already know, the Porsche Taycan is the Straits Times Car of the Year, with our panel of judges giving it a near-perfect scorecard. Porsche's first electric car not only clinched the overall top spot, but was also voted best in 7 out of 9 categories.
It lost out only to the Hyundai Avance in ergonomics and value for money, but the best way to appreciate the Taycan is to drive it.
As 2020 draws to a close, we tend to ponder the important things in life. What is ST's Car of the Year? Today, we have Senior Transport Correspondent Chris Tan to tell us all about it.
Hey brother,
Hey Zai,
is this the Car of the Year?
you bet it is.
You wanna show me what it can do?
Hop in. This car stands out for being different. It's got 2 motors, right? One front, one back, and it decides which wheels to power. To conserve power, it just drives the front wheel. But if you want enthusiastic driving, it takes the rear wheels. When conditions are slippery, all 4 wheels are working. So it's a very smart vehicle.
How fast can it go?
0 to 100 in 4 seconds, and top speed, 250.
Wow, that's impressive. Is it environmentally friendly?
Electric cars are supposed to be more environmentally friendly because they emit no tailpipe exhaust, so the air is cleaner.
Did the electric car option really give it an edge over the other cars?
I would say yes to the part where it gives it enormous and insane power.
I have to ask, how much does this car cost?
Well, on the road of COE, it's just slightly over $500,000.
Ooh. I heard this car holds the drifting record for electric cars. But can it do donuts?
Actually, I have been wondering about that myself. Shall we find out? You know what else this car can do? Launch control in an electric car.
Came out. How? You went like that, no? Steep angle, man.
If you missed it and you're wondering how much it costs, just so you know, the Porsche Taycan costs about $500,000.
So not a Christmas present for everybody, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Not for me anyway.
Now, Christopher's full test drive is on the Straits Times' YouTube channel.
Well, for more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. Join us tomorrow for more stories on The Big Story.